I've worked with a lot of different comedians, you know what I mean? From Chris Tucker to Mike Gapps to Tracy Morgan, Tracy Morgan, get well, man.
Ice Cube doesn't fall out with people often, but when he does, people lose careers, franchises, or millions of dollars. One actor walked away and never came back. One man walked away from $12 million rather than return. One attacked him in a 3-hour interview watched by tens of millions. And one situation remains unresolved to this day. So, who did Ice Cube fall out with? And who does he still have unfinished business with? Join us as we reveal the actors Ice Cube hates. Number 6. Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart helped build a franchise with Ice Cube, then he quietly walked away from it. And the story behind that is worth looking into. Kevin played Ben Barber opposite Ice Cube in 2014.
Together we made an amazing movie. I think the world is going to enjoy this film. I think we're going to laugh, and that was our goal at hand, plain and simple.
And the movie was a hit. For Ice Cube, it was another franchise win. Before Ride Along, Kevin was still mainly a stand-up comedian. After it, he was a movie star. Ice Cube built the opportunity, and Kevin used it. Ride Along 2 came out in 2016 and did over $120 million worldwide. Around the same time, Kevin Hart signed a first-look deal with Universal and started stacking films back-to-back, while his stand-up tours went global. His schedule stopped looking like an actor with gaps for sequels. By then, Kevin's name was above the title on multiple projects, his stand-up tours were selling out arenas internationally, and he became one of the most in-demand comedians in Hollywood. Ice Cube had discussed ideas for a third film publicly, and both entries had proven that the two had real chemistry on screen. Ice Cube had discussed ideas for a third film, and the first two entries had proven strong audience chemistry between the leads. At that point, Kevin was already headlining global comedy tours like What Now Jay and selling out arenas across multiple continents. He also became one of Hollywood's most bankable leads, consistently opening films at the box office while balancing stand-up commitments that kept his schedule locked for years ahead.
Stand-up that I can personally say I've done that surpasses anything that I've recently had.
Then, Central Intelligence changed everything. Then he teamed up with Dwayne Johnson, and it worked instantly. Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle followed in 2017. Jumanji, The Next Level in 2019. They kept making hit after hit together. They became a brand together. Meanwhile, Ride Along 3 never happened. Ice Cube brought it up in public in 2023. During a podcast appearance, he said Kevin owed him money, $1 from a bet he had placed that Kevin would end up closer to The Rock than to him after their first film together. He said Kevin's behavior, the moment The Rock entered the picture, confirmed exactly what the bet predicted. He wanted the dollar paid in pennies. Kevin, shown the clip, laughed and said Ice Cube remained one of his closest friends in the industry. It came off like a joke. Kevin continued making Jumanji films, while Ride Along did not continue as a franchise during that period. Kevin didn't attack Ice Cube or disrespect him. As of early 2026, production still hadn't been scheduled, contracts weren't in place, and no public timeline had been set. While Kevin's calendar didn't show any clear opening for it, Ice Cube's door was open. Whether Kevin intended to walk back through was a question only Kevin could answer. Kevin moved on to other projects. The next situation became more publicly contentious. Number 5. Faizon Love. The Friday franchise made Ice Cube a millionaire. The man who played Big Worm walked away with $2,500. Faizon Love joined Friday in 1995 in what looked like a small role, a neighborhood drug dealer who collected money with menace and delivered his threats with a specific unhinged cheerfulness. Faizon brought something to Big Worm that elevated every scene he appeared in.
Opening up, they put me, a comedian, out there, and one time I was taking too long, and it's like, bring out the Fat Joe.
The film cost $2.3 million and pulled in $27 million. Big Worm became one of the most quoted characters in the franchise's entire run, referenced, imitated, and recognized by audiences who had never seen the other two films. Faizon got $2,500 and went home. He didn't talk about it for over 20 years. In interviews, he consistently said the exposure was the point, that Friday gave him the platform he needed to build the rest of his career, and that the money wasn't the thing he had gone there for. What he didn't discuss publicly was what happened when next Friday came around. Ice Cube's team came back to Faizon with an offer to reprise Big Worm. The offer was double the original scale, $5,000. Faison turned it down. The morning after he said no, a call came in from Warner Brothers offering him $100,000 for a supporting role in The Replacements. He took it and didn't look back. The Big Worm chapter of the Friday franchise closed without the character the audience most wanted to see return. Faison moved forward. Ice Cube rebuilt Next Friday around different characters and released it anyway. Both men continued working. The subject stayed buried. Then, in December 2021, Faison gave an interview in which the $2,500 figure came out. The internet turned on Ice Cube within hours. The internet saw it one way. A man who had built a franchise worth over $120 million at the box office had paid the actor behind one of its most iconic characters less than what most people made in a week. Ice Cube later responded publicly, stating that Faison had worked 1 or 2 days, and that every actor on the film was paid scale, because that was what the budget covered, and that anyone who felt the pay was insufficient had been free to decline the role. He offered no apology. But there was one thing he didn't mention: the jump from $2,500 to $5,000 for a character the audience had already demonstrated they would pay to see again. It didn't look like Faison was being treated like a priority. He had been brought back at the minimum the franchise thought it could get away with. Faison posted within 48 hours, calling Ice Cube his brother, saying he had zero regrets and asking the internet to move on. The public dispute closed quickly, but the sequel conversation, the $5,000 offer, the turndown, the $100,000 alternative that arrived the next morning, stayed on record. Fans noticed immediately. The character had clearly been worth more than what he was paid. The money question inside the Friday franchise had officially been opened, and the next man had been offered $12 million, and still said no. Faison walked for $5,000. The next man rejected $12 million and vanished. Number 4. Chris Tucker. Chris Tucker left $10,000 on the table the day he walked onto the Friday set.
Amazing stand-up comedian. He's performing tomorrow night at the Tennessee Performing Arts Center in Nashville. Give it up, Chris Tucker.
And Ice Cube spent the next 30 years trying to get him to come back. Chris had no film career to speak of when he joined Friday in 1995. He had Def Comedy Jam credits and a reputation in stand-up circles as he had a wild, unpredictable energy on stage. Ice Cube cast him as Smokey anyway, and what Chris delivered was one of the most precisely timed comic performances of that decade. He stole every scene he was in. Friday turned him into a name. The Fifth Element and Money Talks followed immediately. Then Rush Hour made him one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood. He went from $10,000 to $20 million per picture in under 4 years. Next Friday arrived in 2000, and Smokey wasn't in it. Ice Cube's team had offered Chris somewhere between $10 and $12 million to reprise the role. Chris turned it down. His Christian faith had deepened significantly in the years since the first film, and the content of the Friday franchise, the weed, the language, and the specific culture of the original no longer fit what he was willing to publicly represent. Ice Cube's position was clear. The franchise existed because of what it was, and rebuilding it around one actor's changed beliefs wasn't something he was prepared to do. Chris walked. Ice Cube rebuilt the sequel around Mike Epps and released it anyway. The absence of Smokey was felt from the opening scene and never stopped being the first question in every Friday interview for the next 25 years. Ice Cube wrote Smokey into both Last Friday scripts he submitted to Warner Brothers. The character was never cut. Every draft assumed Chris would eventually come back. Ice Cube held the door open across 9 years of studio battles, 2 rejected screenplays, and the deaths of John Witherspoon and Tommy Lister Jr., both of whom had appeared in the franchise, and both of whom Ice Cube publicly said he had wanted to give one more Friday before they ran out of time. Chris made occasional comments about the franchise's direction over the years, never a confrontation, always something that landed slightly wrong with people close to Ice Cube, and each time it pushed them a little further apart. No single moment that could be pointed to as the break, just a slow accumulation of space between 2 men who had started something together and never formally finished it. When Warner Brothers finally came through with a green light under new leadership in 2024, Epps confirmed publicly in early 2025 that Ice Cube had called him personally and the deal was done. The call happened. Last Friday was moving, and Chris still hadn't committed. As of early 2026, Ice Cube confirmed no actors had signed contracts. He said the goal was to bring back every familiar face the story could carry. Chris still hasn't said yes. 2 decades of distance, a $12 million offer turned down, and 2 separate scripts that still kept the character written into the story. Chris had been the one who walked away from Friday at the height of the franchise. He had also been the one whose absence had made every subsequent film feel incomplete. Whether he comes back through the door, Ice Cube has kept open since 1999 is now the only Friday question that still matters. Chris left the door open. The next situation didn't involve a door at all. It involved a studio, a contract, and $9 million. Number 3. Jack Black and Sony Pictures. $9 million was on the table. Ice Cube left it there and walked. The setup had been straightforward. In June 2021, Oh Hell No was announced, with Ice Cube and Jack Black co-starring for the first time, Jack as a man who falls for his friend's mother, Ice Cube as the friend who was never going to allow it. The director was Kitao Sakurai, fresh off the breakout Netflix comedy Bad Trip. The shoot was scheduled for Hawaii that winter, and the $9 million figure attached to Ice Cube's role had been publicly confirmed. It was a commercially sensible project with 2 recognizable leads, a proven director and a studio, Sony, with the infrastructure to release it properly. 4 months later, Ice Cube was off the film. The production required all cast members to be vaccinated before the Hawaii shoot. Ice Cube had been consistent about his position on the vaccine throughout the pandemic. He was not getting it, and no figure attached to any project was going to change that. Sony held the requirement. Ice Cube held his position. The production moved to replace him rather than accommodate the exception. He addressed it publicly on a podcast weeks later, clearly, without naming the film or Sony directly, and made a distinction the press had been blurring. He had not turned the role down. The role had been taken from him when he declined the requirement. $9 million, not surrendered voluntarily, but removed by a condition he refused to meet. He said he had no idea how Hollywood felt about him at that point. He said it without any audible concern about the answer. The collapse of the project went further than one casting change. After Ice Cube's exit, the production delayed its start date. No replacement was publicly announced. Sony reportedly paused Oh Hell No, later reworking the project under a new title and creative direction, with changes to the director and cast structure, commissioned a new script, and detached Jack from the starring role, leaving him only as a producer on a film that no longer resembled the one originally announced.
I'm Jack Black.
Jack Black.
I'm not even in the top 3. But anyways, this is an interview for the Minecraft movie.
The project that would have been the first Ice Cube-Jack screen pairing ceased to exist. Neither the film nor the partnership it was built around ever recovered. It was Ice Cube's second project exit in the same window. He had also left Flint Strong, a boxing drama written by Moonlight filmmaker Barry Jenkins, under circumstances that were never fully confirmed publicly. 2 films gone in 2 months. The industry took note of that. Jack made no statement targeting Ice Cube. There was no personal conflict between them, competing claims about credit or conduct didn't surface, and nothing escalated into a beef that needed resolution. The adversary in this story was institutional, a studio that set a non-negotiable condition on a production, and enforced it when the condition wasn't met. Ice Cube had spent his entire career fighting institutional obstruction, from NWA being banned from radio, to Warner Brothers sitting on Last Friday for nearly a decade, to labels and studios that underestimated what he was building. This was another version of the same thing. The studio had a rule. He had a line. The line won. $9 million. No regret on record. The project never got made. Sony took $9 million from him. The next one didn't touch his money. He went after his legacy. Number 2. Cat Williams. Cat Williams had one foot in the Friday franchise and used it to kick Ice Cube in the face. Cat joined Friday after Next in 2002 with no film profile to speak of. His stand-up reputation was strong in specific circles, but nationally, he was unknown. The role of Money Mike, a fast-talking, small-frame pimp who gets robbed by a man in a Santa costume and spends the rest of the film trying to reclaim his dignity, was a supporting part in a low-budget sequel. Cat turned it into his national introduction. Money Mike landed. The character became one of the most quoted figures in the entire franchise, and Cat walked out of that production with the mainstream exposure that launched everything that came next. his own specials, television work, Norbit, and a career position that made him one of the most talked-about comedians in the country for the following 2 decades. Ice Cube gave Chris Tucker his first major film opportunity. In January 2024, Kat sat down for an interview on Club Shay Shay that ran for over 3 hours and became one of the most watched entertainment conversations of the year. He made specific claims about his time on Friday After Next that landed directly on Ice Cube. Kat said he had performed a scene during the shoot that was the single funniest moment in the film, and that Ice Cube had ordered the scene cut because it made Cube look weak by comparison on his own production. Ice Cube had removed the best material from his own film to protect his position as the dominant presence on screen. Ice Cube posted a video response within days. He said the scene Kat described did not exist, that no footage of that caliber had been cut because he had no reason to cut it. He said his style of filmmaking had never involved removing material that worked, and that if the scene had been as strong as Kat claimed, it would have been in the film. Then he said something harder to ignore. He said Kat was ungrateful, that he had given Kat his first mainstream platform, and that Kat had never once returned the gesture. He said he had put many people in films throughout his career, and not one of them had ever put him in theirs. He acknowledged Kat's talent without softening the criticism. Kat did not retract the claim. He had also made broader assertions in the same interview about the Friday franchise as a whole, suggesting that Ice Cube's creative authority over the films had been propped up by the contributions of others who never received adequate recognition. The Friday audience, which overlapped significantly with Kat's fan base, split. Comment sections on both men's platforms ran for weeks. The debate about who was telling the truth was still generating traffic months later. Friday had started as a $3.5 million film that the studio expected to fail. Ice Cube had written it, produced it, starred in it, and spent 30 years protecting it from the people who wanted to change it into something else. Kat had been handed a role in that franchise and used the visibility it gave him to publicly question whether the man who built it deserved the credit he had. As of early 2026, neither man had addressed the other publicly since. Kat came for the franchise. The next betrayal started before the franchise even existed. Number 1, Eazy-E and Dr. Dre. Before the films, before the franchises, before Hollywood knew Ice Cube's name, there was NWA, and 2 men who helped build it nearly destroyed him completely. Ice Cube had grown up in the same Compton neighborhood as Eric Wright and Andre Young. The 3 of them, alongside DJ Yella and MC Ren, formed NWA in the mid-1980s and built something the industry couldn't control. The FBI sent a formal letter to their label after Fuck the Police was released. Radio stations refused to air their records. The group got bigger anyway, and Ice Cube sat at the center of it as the primary writer, responsible for the majority of Straight Outta Compton, significant portions of Eazy's debut solo album Easy Does It, and co-writing credits across other Ruthless Records releases that went double platinum without his name appearing on a single royalty check. He was living at home with his parents while Jerry Heller and Eazy were in large houses with expensive cars. When Ice Cube raised the financial discrepancy, Eazy sided with Jerry. The question of where the money was going got reframed as a question of Ice Cube's loyalty to the group. He left NWA at the end of 1989 with no label deal and guaranteed income. What came next was No Vaseline, a track that named Heller directly, addressed each NWA member individually, and detailed the financial arrangement in enough specifics to make the accusations impossible to dismiss as exaggeration. NWA recorded no formal group response. Dre left the following year, carrying the same financial grievances, and formed Death Row Records. The group dissolved. After that, they went in completely different directions. Dre's The Chronic in 1992 redrew hip-hop production. Ice Cube built his solo catalog and moved into film. Eazy released material targeting both of them from Ruthless Records. The audience watched all of it and kept score publicly. By the mid-1990s, something had changed between Ice Cube and Eazy. The two had begun talking again, not publicly, but in meetings that Ice Cube later described as real conversations about getting back into the studio together. They were starting to fix things. Both men had acknowledged enough of what had happened to start moving towards something different. Eazy announced his HIV diagnosis publicly on March 16, 1995. He died 10 days later. He was 30 years old. Ice Cube arrived at the hospital. Dre was already leaving. He told Ice Cube that Eazy was unconscious. Ice Cube left. He told Dre to call when Eazy woke up, went home, and waited. The call came. Eazy was gone. The conversation they had been slowly building toward never happened. The road back to Dre took its own time. When they reconnected in the mid-1990s to record Natural Born Killers, Dre reached out without warning after years of silence. Ice Cube said later that walking into the studio felt as though no time had passed at all. They didn't revisit the past, they made the record. The Straight Outta Compton biopic in 2015 gave them both a formal reason to sit with everything they had built, broken, and partially rebuilt over 25 years. They produced it together. In January 2021, Dre was hospitalized after a brain aneurysm. Ice Cube posted the same day, asking people to send love to his brother. In February 2024, NWA received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award. Dre sent a text. He was at his daughter's birthday celebration. Ice Cube told the room that Dre was a billionaire with places to be.
My man Dr. Dre's not here. He wanted to make sure to let you know he's not hating, he just...
Then he said that every record NWA ever made, every room they had ever walked into because of that music, had started with Eazy's vision. He said Eazy had made all of it possible. The man who had arrived at the hospital too late was the last one standing to say it. Did Eazy and Ice Cube actually repair what broke them? Or did success just make it easier to ignore the damage? And with Smokey still not confirmed for the final Friday film, is this just scheduling? Or is that friendship already quietly over? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.